Hello everyone, it's Leo, and it's time to talk about episode 41 from Hirogaru's PreCure. We're very close to the end of the show, and this episode, unexpectedly, at least to me, brought us a little bit more insight on Under Empire. Even though it wasn't the focus, we were still able to learn a little bit more about them. And at the end, there was a saying from Skierhead that I got really impressed. I was like, what is happening right now? I was not expecting that. So let's talk about it. This episode focused on Mashiro and Monda, or Batamonda. I feel like it focused more on Batamonda and not so much on Mashiro. I feel like it didn't bring us anything new related to her. But I feel like it gave us something that we haven't seen much from Mashiro before. And when the episode started, they start talking about autumn, which is something I personally haven't really experienced because here in Brazil, we basically have only two seasons, which are summer and winter, and a very small winter, by the way. So I have never really experienced this specific type of autumn that they explained in this episode, and I would love to. I would love to see the fallen leaves, the yellow leaves, the orange and the red leaves as well. It must look so pretty. Don't take that for granted. And if you have that in your country, obviously. And so it was nice and very poetic the way they were expressing the autumn activities. And Sora was very excited to train, to do the autumn training that she does. And Mashiro decided to take on the picture book contest again, the same one that she tried before and failed, but not really failed. She just didn't win, but she got the experience, and it was ultimately a good experience for her. So she decided to do that again, but she was not having any luck or ability to write. She was having a creative block. It was very funny when Sora was trying to massage her and it was very stiff. I loved that scene. So they decided to go to the park to watch the leaves and have this autumn experience. She didn't want to go, she wanted to stay, but ultimately the girls took her. They decided it was going to be something good for her, and so they picked her and went. When they were there, she was by herself, and she quickly got inspired by the leaves. And because of that, she decided to write her story, or at least get inspirations from her story with the scenario she was watching. And so she stayed by herself while we saw a little bit of Monda. Monda is basically the same one we've seen last time. He still has the same vicious personality, even though he is, or at least doesn't seem to be as vicious as before. And the episode tone was a little lighter on him, I feel like. And also his scenes, especially when we see like the interior of Batamonda's mind, was also a little lighter, and it wasn't as playful as the previous episode that we saw him in. It was a little bit more not sincere, because the other one was sincere as well. I think it was a little bit more lucid, you know, as if he right now doesn't have the same feelings, or I mean, he does have the same feelings, but not with the intensity that he had before. After his meeting with Mashiro, I feel like things have started to shift inside of him just a little bit, but they have. And he starts analyzing his life. He said something that I was very impressed by, which is he is trying to find a way to come back to the Under Empire. I was not expecting to see that from him. And while he was reflecting on his life, he saw one leaf fall to the ground and someone stomp it. So he thought that his life was just like that. But at the same time, he saw Kabaton. I am so happy. Did you guys see that we're going to have a Kabaton acrylic stand? I am the happiest person in the world. My husband. Oh my God. And I just loved seeing Kabaton. I feel like Kabaton brought a different perspective in this episode, because we have Batamonda, who was trying to come back to Under Empire. He is living a sad life, while Kabaton, on the other hand, is living here on Earth as in Batamonda's perspective. as a failure, but he seemed happy. He seemed content. He was there selling his baked potatoes. People were around him. People wanted to eat the baked potatoes. He seemed to be at least happy with the situation he was in, and he was making the most of what he could. And I'm so happy for my baby Kabaton. I'm so happy he is back just for a little bit. Girl, I'm happy. Hashtag justice for Kabaton. He deserved more. So when Monda meets Mashiro, he still has that mind of trying to destroy her dream. And so he starts talking to her about, so first off, he gives her a warm drink. So it's very weird to me that he is trying to still destroy her dream, her morale, by trying to make her feel better, because it was cold and she needed a drink. She needed a hot drink to make her feel better. So why do that? You know, there are things there that are changing inside of him, I feel like, at least. And so he was still trying to diminish her dream. But for that, what did he do? He shared his own experience. So he shared the fact that only the strong and powerful win. People who try hard enough are not able to stand up and, you know, break the mold. And that's what happened in Under Empire. He tried his best. We saw him training. We saw him, Minaton and Kabaton, training against the monsters to become stronger. And he couldn't, because he is not strong physically. So for him, he's a failure. And then he shares that with Mashiro. And then he also shares the fact that there were so many autumn leaves and he feels like one because he is a waste. He doesn't deserve anything because he is a failure. And Mashiro sees the autumn leaves in a totally different perspective. She sees them as something that is part of a cycle. She sees that as something that the trees do to keep on living. They are there for a reason. Even when you think you're down on the ground and nothing is worthy anymore, there is a role for you in the world. And so that's how she sees the leaves. And she finishes by saying, I love autumn leaves. And that changes him, because for him, he was seeing himself in one specific perspective, which was the autumn leaves fall, someone stomps it and breaks it. That's it. Mashiro has another perspective. The trees put the autumn leaves down, they stay on the ground, and they become, I don't know the word in English, but you do understand what I mean, right? They become food for the trees. I'm sorry, I have no idea how to say that. But so it's a very terminological way of talking about things. I am not a biologist. But still, so there is the cycle. For Mashiro, it's a totally different perspective. And Monda was not seeing himself like that. And he did not want to accept that Mashiro's perspective could make sense for him. Because in this episode, he was praised. He was doing a good job in the food truck he was in. He was being praised by his boss. And even though he kept on repeating that he was only doing everything he did for money and for survival, which is true, obviously, we work because we need to. There was this change inside of him. I feel like there was this process of changing. And when Mashiro told him that, he did not want to accept it. But it feels to me, at least, that inside for him, he knew that it could be true. And so he ran away. He was not able to deal with that. And when he ran away, he met Skeerhead. And Skeerhead Skeerhead told some interesting things in their dialogue, which are, first thing, he completely ignored the mission of capturing the princess. Everything he did after he became the villain from Hirogaru Sky was to try to defeat the Cures because he had a lot of spite on them. And everything he did wasn't really the mission that the Under Empire gave him. And Skeerhead remembered when Batamoda was training. And he said something very interesting as well, which was, it was interesting to see Batamoda training because his spirit would never break. He said something like that. His spirit would never break. So he kept on training. He kept on trying hard. And this is not a perspective that I would think when I see Batamoda. Till the start of the show, when we get to see him, he is always trying in his own way of dealing with things, but he is always trying. And I like that perspective, actually. And when he was almost being defeated, Mashiro came in and tried to save him. And it was very funny that Skier knows Mashiro's Cure Prism, I think. He knows, he sees them transforming every week. But it was very weird to me that Mashiro did not think why Skier was attacking Monda, though. Because he does not attack random civilians. He creates Kyoborgs to try to defeat the Cures, but he does not attack random people. Why didn't Mashiro think that it was weird? But she didn't. She protected him, and the fighting scene started. Before the fighting scene started, we had the other characters creating an autumn leaf Tsubasa. It was very cute. I loved that. But then the fighting scene started, and the fighting scene was actually very interesting. We had Skier point of view, which was only the strong succeed, and we have the Cure's point of view, Mashiro's point of view, which is, I feel like, the key of the episode. Power is not your worth. It's not part of your worth. Being strong, being powerful isn't part of your worth. And we see that happening during the fighting scene because they were weaker than the Kyoborg in a way, because the Kyoborg could break them down fast, but Cure Prism created a technique for them to win. And I'm liking that in the Hirogaru fights. We don't have like crazy fighting scenes or like the situations in which they show how strong they are. Not really. But I like when they create those techniques like they did in this episode. It was very funny, and I loved Cure Majesty kicking Cure Butterfly's shield. Girl, I loved that. And I just love, I just have to say this again. I love every time Cure Butterfly's shield works. You want that, Cure Anjay? So the battle scene was very simple, very easy. But then we have Cure Sky confronting Skierhead. And she went on, she tried to punch him, and she almost got beat if it wasn't for Cure Wing. But the most important thing of the whole episode, in terms of lore and story from Hirogaru Sky, was at the end. She asked why they're doing what they're doing, why they're going after Princess. I mean, she didn't say this, but why are they doing what they're doing? And his answer was very simple. Because we love the one who ordered us to do it. Girl, is he doing everything he is doing because he loves Empress Underg? Is that your reason? Oh my God, Skierhead, if that's your reason, I'm gonna think you're an icon. You know why? I think there are lots of PreCure seasons in which we see generals, like women generals, female generals, who are in love or who are obsessed with the big male villain. And I feel like it's nice to have the contrary of that, like regular generals who are obsessed or in love with the main female villain. We had that in Yes PreCure 5, and we had that in Tropical Rouge. And now maybe we have it again in Hirogaru Sky. Oh my God, if that's the case, I'm sorry, I am gonna love it. It's gonna be incredible, girl. And after that, Sora was shook for the rest of the episode. She didn't even have lines anymore because Mashiro decided that now it is time for her to write a new story, and she's going to write an autumn story. It's not going to be an all happy one, but she decided she's going to write it to support people around her. And I like that. I like to support people that read the story, not around her, exactly. And we finished the episode with Monda, and Monda is right now taking everything in. He is, absorbing everything he learned in today's adventure, in today's experience. How is this going to change him? I feel like now is really the time in which he will have a real change of heart. It's the second time he goes through something very emotional with Mashiro, and right now he will probably have a bigger change of heart and will try to see a new way of life, another perspective. So I feel like it is closure to Batamonda. And when we see him again, if we do, he is just going to be someone else, not trying to destroy anyone's dreams. And I mean, he did, but he did not even come close to succeed, right? So, episode 41, My Hero Corner. I am so sorry. I'm going to be very biased here, but My Hero Corner was to see Kabaton again. That was the best part of the episode to me. I just love seeing my baby thrive and be a little happy, even if it's just for a little bit. We haven't seen much, but, you know, he was smiling. He was enjoying himself. And he was working, you know, he is employed. He has his own way of making cash, baby. He is living. He is trying his best. And I love my hubby. And next week, we're going to see the conclusion of Sora's trauma against Spearhead with the addition of Captain Shalala on Earth. Very, very exciting. I'm very curious to see the episode next week. Anyways, babies, this is it for now. Want to take this little time to thank the members of the Magical Cinnamon channel. If you are a member, thank you very much for your support. And if you've watched up until now, thank you so much as well. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye bye.